All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Today's Team Kentucky update is going to include a number of our regular updates. It's going to include the next preview of parts of my budget recommendation, but it starts where all of us and our priorities start, helping our families that were devastated in the worst tornado disaster that our Commonwealth has ever been through. So December the 10th saw an event that ultimately killed 77 Kentuckians, one as young as 6 days old. It wiped out almost the entirety of several towns, and it left so many of our families struggling. I'm proud that we've all worked together to respond to meet the needs of these families, but we know that it's going to take a long time, a year, maybe two, to not just dig out, but to rebuild. But I'm here today to celebrate a bipartisan piece of legislation that we all know is just the first that's going to be needed to free up resources right now, not when the fiscal year starts, but right now to support these Western Kentucky families. It includes two parts. The first is prioritizing our kids. It's providing the impacted school systems with $30 million of additional funding to provide wraparound services. Many of these kids right now are homeless, having their home wiped out, having lost all of their possessions, and having gone through a level of trauma that most of us would have a hard time comprehending or understanding. It's going to provide wraparound services where our schools can literally put their arms around these kids and meet their needs in the coming days and months and, yes, years. The second piece is the first $15 million that we requested to speed up what I have to call for FEMA non-congregate sheltering, which is more medium-term housing. It's getting folks out of hotels that may not be able to guarantee certain lengths of stays and into what we call travel trailers, which will allow them to be closer to their community. And we are working right now with the communities impacted to be able to locate especially families with kids close to their schools, close to their communities where they can receive services. I'm grateful for the legislators that pushed it through. I'm grateful of the area legislators that have shown such leadership in their communities during these trying times. And today, we're going to begin by signing this piece of legislation into law. So we have a number of our Western Kentucky legislators here today, and I'd invite them all up as we do this, not ceremonial, but actual bill signing. We'll all have to do our best. If you cramp. That's right. You got it. All right. The tough part's how you get up after all this. I'm going to mention you tonight on your tractor.
All right, well, thank you.
Let me get Senator in here.
Come on.
I'm a pretty good driver. I don't know how good I am.
Not all that great.
Are you okay there? You good there?
Yes.
Okay.
Got it? Can you fit everybody in, do something? Back and down.
That's a good problem.
All right, so let's all start looking up. Can't believe I'm smelling every time. We ready? Let's make it into law. And 113, 2022. Thank you all and congratulations. As I try to get up and knock everybody. Thank you all. I'll tell you what, if the sponsors in the House and the Senate would like to say a few words. Absolutely.
From here.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So this is very much appreciated. I want to say thank you to the governor for his quick response. I was on the phone with him within hours after the tornado passed through Mayfield. He was on the ground within 36 hours after the tornado passed. And then I want to say, and he's been back multiple times. I want to say thank you to House and Senate leadership for their quick action on the bill, getting this process started, and for our chairs and A&R chairs in both the House and the Senate for their quick action and quick response. And I think this shows the bipartisan effort that's needed. And we all know that natural disasters does not know the difference between Democrat and Republican. So thank you very much.
I want to say thank you, especially to the Senate leadership and our leadership in the House that we have as well, and all of these Western Kentucky senators as well as House members that collaborated on this. We first heard on a call from the governor the needs, as we also talked with our area judge executives and city mayors. And on the ground, FEMA was there almost immediately, but our emergency management folks were so critical in all of this. And so this is just the first actually allocation of that fund. There will be more as we figure out what the immediate needs are. And I just want to say the senator from Callaway, who is primary sponsor in the Senate, could not be here today. I know he expresses those thanks as well and appreciation for his communities too. Thank you so much.
Okay. Jimmy, do you want to get CB?
Yeah, I got it.
You're gonna get, okay, thanks.
Jimmy's going to get you.
Thanks, Governor.
How fast you want to go down, CB?
Oh, Zoom, no. Not really fast. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Governor, and to all of the legislators who could join us here for that today. I've got some great economic development announcements to share now. And the first we're going to start with is Novelis. On the heels of a record year for investment, the job creation in the Commonwealth, we are hitting the ground running in 2022. Earlier this year, we announced Novelis is leading a leading aluminum producer and recycler, will expand its presence in Todd County with a $365 million investment that will create 140 good-paying jobs for local residents. Novelis is a company that's growing quickly in the southwestern part of the state. The company celebrated the opening of its automotive aluminum finishing plant in Guthrie just this past October, and this commitment to move forward with a phase 2 expansion is incredible news for the talented workforce throughout the region. With this project, Novelis will construct a new casting, shredding, and recycling center adjacent to the recently opened facility on Old Railroad Lane. The new facility also is expected to reduce the company's carbon emissions by more than 1 million tons each year, growing Novelis's North American automotive recycling footprint in the process. With its beverage can recycling facility in Berea, Novelis has maintained a presence in our state for more than 30 years, and its continued growth in Kentucky will ensure quality jobs for residents for decades to come. So the governor and I would like to thank the leadership at Novelis for this commitment, and I cannot wait to see what is next for the company and for the Commonwealth. Next up, we have an announcement about SAKI, S-A-K-I. Since taking office, Governor Beshear and I have made it a top priority to protect Kentuckians and promote justice across the Commonwealth. Over the past 2 years, we have taken major steps forward on our journey to end acts of violence and provide justice for survivors of violent crime. In July of last year, we took a giant leap when Governor Beshear announced that $1.5 million in grants from the Department of Justice had been awarded to the Commonwealth to support the transition of investigative resources, including 3 trained investigators and a criminal intelligence analyst from the previous placement at the Kentucky office of the Attorney General to Kentucky State Police to form the Sexual Assault Kit Initiative, or SAKI, investigative team to focus on investigating and identifying sexual offenders. And with today's announcement, Kentucky is taking one more step forward in creating a better and safer Commonwealth for future generations. We are proud to announce that an additional $850,000 in grant funding from the Department of Justice has been awarded to expand the KSP SAKI investigative team through the hiring of an additional investigator to focus on investigating and identifying sexual offenders in Jefferson County. The bulk of the current SAKI inventory originated in the Louisville metro area. Therefore, the new investigator will reopen and investigate cases and work with prosecutors to obtain new charges when possible. Lastly, this award provides funding for the KSP Forensic Lab to complete DNA and other forensic analysis on sexual assault kits from approximately 500 historical cases from the Phase 3 inventory, which consists of identified SAKI-eligible sexual assaults and sexually motivated homicides occurring from the 1970s to the early 1990s. We want to thank the Kentucky State Police for helping victims as they walk the path towards healing and recovery, and for holding offenders accountable so that all Kentuckians can experience safety and security in their homes, neighborhoods, and communities. The work of the KSP SAKI team is tough and honorable, but the events these individuals have faced is horrific and something that most of us cannot even imagine. It is imperative that as a state, we are equipped with the resources needed to transform the lives of Kentucky survivors, and this grant funding is doing just that. Governor Beshear and I will continue to seek justice for victims of crimes and to guarantee that they have an advocate working for them and seeking justice for them every day. Thank you so much, and I'm going to turn it back over to Governor Beshear.
All right, today is day 4 of our preview of my recommended budget titled Our Future is Now. It's a budget that moves Kentucky not right or left, but forward. This is a budget built on values that we as Kentuckians live by, while making bold investments to continue our record-breaking economic momentum. On Monday, I discussed my plan for education and how my budget, for the first time ever, offers free pre-K for every 4-year-old in Kentucky. We talked about how we're adding nearly $2 billion of additional funding from pre-K through 12th grade. That lives up not just to the promises we made in Kara and the Rose decision, but also gives us the opportunity to build the world-class workforce that our world-class economy needs, but it also gives everybody a chance, everybody opportunity. On Tuesday, I shared how my budget will make investments that will make us a world leader, how we invest in emerging industries and our workforce while providing critical infrastructure projects to ensure your kids and mine travel safe roads and safe bridges, and how we can leverage Kentucky's distinct one-of-a-kind experiences and unparalleled hospitality to further secure our spot as not just the destination for business, but also for tourism. And just yesterday, I talked about what we're going to do to provide more Kentuckians with access to quality health care and how we can protect our most vulnerable populations. I also updated you on what we have the ability to do for our veterans, which is a whole lot in this budget. They've done more for us than we can ever repay. So today, I want to discuss how we can improve public safety throughout the Commonwealth. The Kentucky State Police is experiencing an unprecedented shortage of troopers. They're at their lowest number in over 30 years. That creates a public safety crisis. We cannot afford not to have both the troopers that are working now, but also the level that we need. So my budget supports what we previously announced, a $15,000 pay increase for all of our state troopers. And our KSP telecommunicators, they're short-staffed. And if you were at that press conference announcing our plan those months ago, you would have heard an amazing story and stories from one of those telecommunicators. It would have convinced you that these are incredible workers who go through some of the highest levels of stress to be there when someone calls 911 in times of emergency. My budget includes an $8,000 pay increase for telecommunicators, which will assist in both the recruitment and the retention efforts. My budget also funds body cameras for state troopers for the first time. These cameras protect everybody, the trooper and the public. We also continue to address the technical needs of KSP to ultimately replace the existing statewide emergency radio communications network, which has reached the end of its life cycle after 17 years. We have places that we ask our state police to go to protect our people where they cannot communicate with the outside world. Their radios cannot call for help, and we cannot allow that to happen to our troopers. My budget helps other first responders as well, with a significant increase in the CLEP fund. Local state law enforcement officers and local firefighters will receive a much needed stipend increase. My budget provides an hourly pay increase to sheriff's offices for employees who provide security at courthouses. When you look at what they're actually paid, it's not right. And this budget works to make it better. We're also supporting our state prosecutors network by funding additional positions in our Commonwealth attorneys' offices and our county attorneys' offices. These investments will enhance victim services, including the implementation of Marsy's Law, as well as address case backlogs and additional workload due to recent legislative changes. And we're investing in our corrections officers and juvenile justice employees to help staffing shortages and retention. And we're providing funding for an additional 25 probation and parole officers. We're also investing in our corrections system. And before the pandemic hit, when we talked about our long-term challenges, we talked about how our prisons are in the wrong places. Well, yes, over time, we want fewer people incarcerated. We are still going to need some facilities. And so many of our facilities were in places where it's very difficult, based on the economy of that county, to recruit workers. And that we have some facilities that are absolutely crumbling, with the majority of their dormitories no longer fit for housing. So we're investing in the expansion of the Little Sandy Correctional Complex with a separate $170 million project to construct the correction system's statewide medical facility. That is to move the medical facility ultimately from the Kentucky State Reformatory, which I believe is in the worst shape of any of the facilities and does not have much left on its life, to another location. The goal, and I will say my long-term goal, is that some of these facilities that are that aged, we need to close, while ensuring we still have the capacity to handle the number of individuals that the court systems send to us for incarceration. And as I announced last month, we're taking steps to help our state's social workers who are struggling with caseloads, and my budget would address those challenges head on. First, it ensures that we continue that 10% raise to our social workers. Then it adds 350 more staff to reduce the average caseload by nearly 25%. Folks, we have to budget for what we need to protect our children. And just budgeting for a fraction of what we all know is necessary concedes defeat before we've even tried. Yes, we might not be able to hire all 350 people in a year, but we clearly set the benchmark for where we have to get, and we do not allow our budget to be an excuse for not moving as quickly as we can to help our social workers and ultimately have the people that need to be there to protect our families. To attract and retain more social workers, my budget includes a loan forgiveness program to provide a maximum $3,000 a year for each year of employment as a social service worker with DCBS, and you can do that for 5 years. So teachers, nurses, and social workers, all have loan forgiveness in this budget that would be a 5-year program offering them $3,000 of forgiveness each year. That is a retention benefit. It's how we keep hardworking folks in professions that we need to, where in some instances we've removed a pension, which was the retention benefit that kept people working 20 or 30 years. The rest of state government, we're going to help those incredible workers too. That's why for the first time in over 20 years, state employees are going to receive a significant salary increase. I will tell you, we had to go to print with our budget, not just before the House had their surprise and submitted theirs, before Representative Graham submitted his bill. So I will tell you, my budget proposal, which we had to go to print more than a month ago, provides a 5% raise for all state workers. But the timing and preventing extra costs are important. Ours does not, like the House's does, start on an anniversary date. Everyone gets the 5% raise May 1st of this year. We also commit in our budget to no increases in healthcare premiums. So it is a real raise without offsetting costs. But you know what? I like the House's 6%. Yes, it doesn't happen as quickly as ours, so let's do the best of all worlds. Today, I'm committing my full support to the 6% raise that the House is suggesting, but we should do it on the very best timing, May 1st, for every single one of our state employees. And we should keep our commitment to not increasing healthcare premiums at all, meaning a full 6% raise could be available to our state workers as early as May 1st. So let's cooperate. Let's give them the very best. They have more than earned it. And tonight, I'll tell at least one story of how our state workers go above and beyond when people are in need. But that's not all. Our budget fully funds our state employee pensions. And more than that, we lessen our long-term liabilities by significantly more than the House budget. We provide an over and above payment to the KRS pension system of $750 million in this budget. Our state employees, they deserve all that. They deserve that 6% raise. They deserve no increase in their health care premiums. They deserve to get their raise on May 1st, and they deserve more assurance that that pension is going to be there for them in the future. And when we talk about doing right in our state government, we must restore the Commission on Women, restore funding, full funding to the Commission on Human Rights. And we have to reinstate the Office of Minority Empowerment. My budget does all of that. Kentucky's been hit hard by natural disasters over the last few years, by ongoing pandemic and by natural disasters. And what the current law does is it has you reach in to the rainy day fund. But we know now with changing weather patterns that we get hit every year. So for the first budget in our history, we include dollars to respond to those disasters. $100 million disaster relief and recovery fund that will let us expend dollars quickly, have it already budgeted in our system, and we've already seen how people need help and they need it right away. This makes that more possible. The fund will include a no and low interest revolving loan program for local governments to help them respond as they await federal funding through FEMA or insurance claim proceeds. And while we're talking about helping our counties, my budget returns 100% of coal severance funds to coal counties, including the dollars for debt service. That'll be $40 million over 2 years, the largest return, at least by percentage, of coal severance funds since the program originated. In this budget, we're also providing funding for our elections. Now is the time to invest in our people. Tonight, I'll deliver the full budget address. Some of it you'll have heard these last 4 days, but it's how these parts combine together to give us the bright future that my kids and yours deserve. We have never been at the point we find ourselves. Leading in economic development, being the destination, having world-class companies reaching out to us every day saying we want to be in Kentucky. But you know, being on top and staying on top takes work. This budget gives the big, bright future that our families deserve after COVID, where everything's going to be different and we no longer have to follow states like New York or California or Texas or anybody else. Now is our time. Our time is here. Our future is now, and we've got the budget that meets the moment. All right, as I wrap up, first, COVID. COVID cases are skyrocketing. In fact, tonight we will have a much smaller crowd for the budget address because COVID has even hit our legislative body, and we are working to stay safe. Our expectation is that this week will exceed last week, which by far was the largest week for cases that we've had. Our positivity rate is higher than it's ever been. So folks, even with as contagious as this is, vaccinations are still showing that they are hugely successful in preventing you from getting really sick, hospitalized, or prevent you from dying. So get vaccinated and get your booster. And if you haven't, no matter what the excuse is, go get it as fast as you can. We had 5,600 people and change get their booster just yesterday. Now 21% of our entire population has been vaccinated and boosted, and we need to move even faster. 2,628 people getting vaccinated for the first time yesterday. Again, we see slow but steady people continuing to get vaccinated. When we look at our demographics, only one has changed. 40 to 49-year-olds, now 71% of that group has gotten vaccinated. That's gone way up since Delta, which took the lives of so many in that demographic, and Omicron continues to do so. So let me just cut to the chase. Omicron is one of the most contagious viruses we have ever seen, maybe that we have ever seen. And you have the ability to protect yourself. If you're vaccinated and boosted and you get it, probably going to be like a cold or maybe nothing at all. If you're vaccinated but not boosted, you may get sick, but you're very unlikely to end up in the hospital. If you are unvaccinated, this thing may hit you like a freight train. And worse than that, if you fill up hospital beds as quickly as we're seeing, I've already had to call out the National Guard, then that next person in a car accident might not get the care they need. So get vaccinated for that person. Pay it forward so that they will do the same for you. Two more pieces. As we've talked about before, the Red Cross has reported we are experiencing the worst blood shortage in over a decade. That's COVID, that's natural disasters, and others. The dangerously low blood supply levels have forced some hospitals to defer patients from major surgery, including organ transplants. We desperately need more folks to sign up and donate. You can save a life. So I know I've asked a lot. I've asked you to get vaccinated, get boosted, wear a mask, in the proper situations, avoid big crowds. I'd ask you, if you can, to give blood too. In partnership with the Red Cross, I gave blood at the Capitol Rotunda, along with Lieutenant Governor Coleman and other state leaders. We even brought Winnie along to make sure everybody was comforted. Today, I'd like to thank another Kentuckian who's bringing attention to this issue, Miss USA and Team Kentucky All-Star, Elle Smith. Elle donated blood just a few weeks ago after she helped deliver gifts as part of the First Lady's Christmas toy drive. She handled Taylor County for us while we were in Western Kentucky. So I want to thank her for stepping up and for setting the example. And everybody else can sign up to donate at redcrossblood.org. And today we've got two groups of amazing Team Kentucky All-Stars who stepped up to help Western Kentucky families honor the loved ones they lost and begin to rebuild. I want to thank the Kentucky Distillers Association for their generous donation of $3.4 million to the Team Western Kentucky Relief Fund. They have stepped up so many times in the pandemic, from some of the most delicious smelling hand sanitizer to so many other things that were needed. They've truly been really good Kentuckians caring about their communities. But I also want to thank Shop Local KY owners Rick and Joni Paintner and their two daughters. They raised more than $400,000 for the relief fund through the sale of Kentucky Strong t-shirts. They make great t-shirts. So if you're looking for a company and a family with a whole lot of soul and a whole lot of purpose, they're really good ones. As I've said, Kentucky is strong because our people are strong. No pandemic, no disaster is ever going to change that. All right, we will open it up to questions. We got 3 journalists in-house. We'll start with Karen.
One on COVID and one on the budget. With the budget, what conversations have you now been having in the last few days, if any, with lawmakers? And how do you feel things are aligning between the 2 proposals? And then on COVID,
Our numbers are much lower than the actual cases that are out there. We used to get a very good idea because every case had to be reported to go through a lab. But now with at-home tests, you can look at the trend, but you got to expect that significantly more people have COVID. It'll be interesting to see at one point if we can determine how many tests are actually being sold, and we would assume used, because there's such a demand for at-home tests. And you could probably apply a positivity rate and get a very rough, non-scientific concept there, but a whole lot more even than our very scary stair-stepper chart would show have this. I mean, I'm talking to entire businesses where everybody's home. Everybody's home. I think we're starting to even see less traffic out there, and it's because so many people have it. On the budget, most of our conversations right now have been on tornado relief. That's where the focus has been to get that across the finish line. Some have been on process on how we get it filed tonight. I believe the speaker himself is going to file it, and there's going to be lots of opportunity for conversations moving forward. Mark.
In those conversations moving forward, obviously a lot of similarities in the 2 budgets, but I mean, if GOP leaders said to you, okay, Governor, we'll give you 3 things that are not in our budget right now, which of those 3 things would you absolutely want to include that are not in their budget currently?
That's like an essay question. The question is, if we sit down with GOP leaders and they say, give us 3 things that are most important to you to get in this budget that are not in both of them, because KSP raises, for instance, are in both of them. There are some things that they added from the last budget, but not nearly to the level and opportunity that we have. Listen, the GOP budget doesn't move us backwards, right? Like so many budgets had to that were submitted for so long. And maybe they tread water, maybe they move forward just a little, but it's the opportunity here is so great. That's such an incredible moment. You know, my challenge to them is, let's be bold. We can. There's no excuse not to. And not one thing that I've pushed forward has been red or blue, Democrat or Republican. All of them address the kitchen table issues in front of our families. Certainly pre-K and record education funding have to be 2 of the top ones that need to be on the table. There are so many others that we've talked about that are so critical to our families. Ensuring state worker raises, making sure we have enough social workers. The site identification and development site, incredibly important if we don't want to fall behind, right, on that next Ford or Toyota. So I imagine if I was asked that question, I would probably list 9 for the 3 that were offered. Joe.
Can you lay out some specifics on how much your budget proposal is devoting to the rainy day fund over the next 2 years and what that will bump it up to and how that differs from what the Republicans are proposing for the rainy day fund?
And let me ask John to come up so we can get all that right. So right now, we have one of the largest rainy day funds in our state's history. When I became governor, we had one of the smallest in the country. Now we have one of the most robust. In fact, many state budget chairs or economists would say it's actually bigger than it needs to be. But still, we add to it. I think $250 million we add in the next 2 years. Do we add it all in the first year? We add it all in the first year to have, I believe, the healthiest budget reserve trust fund in our history. Remember, my last budget proposal didn't spend any from the rainy day fund. The legislature in the end dipped into it. John, you want to add to that?
Yeah, thank you, Governor. The current balance is right over 1.5 billion, and that's roughly, before the new revenue estimate, 12.5% of general fund revenues. Governor's budget adding 250 million more keeps that ratio similar with the new higher revenue estimates. So it'll be, a little over 1,750,000,000 over that. We have not seen in House Bill 1, the House's budget, any directed funding additional to the rainy day fund.
All right, Al Cross.
Yeah, thank you, Governor. This might be for Dr. Hicks as well. While the Republicans haven't designated money for the rainy day fund, they haven't appropriated all the expected revenue. And
Right.
according to what the speaker said Monday night on KET, looks like they're going to pass a budget that has a lot of leftover money and then use that as the parameter for tax cuts. What do you think about that approach?
Well, I think that it is unnecessary and can be destructive. I mean, the concept when people throw out something like tax reform, what they always say is it's our business climate that we need to improve. Al, we just came off the best year of economic development ever in our history. One of the largest, most sophisticated companies in the country is investing $6 billion in us. We had $11.2 billion in new investment, 18,000 new jobs at the second highest wage. Corporate receipts are higher, I think, than they've ever been before, meaning our companies are making more money because that's corporate income tax. They only pay that amount more if they're making that amount more. We're seeing the same through withholdings and other parts. Every single indication that is all based on success of the business community coming into the state is that we've never had a better, more favorable environment than now. So if we've arrived, if we're beating other states in economic development, if our companies are doing better than they've ever done before, and they tinker with our tax code, and there are always unintended consequences, we could really hurt, if not kill, the golden goose that right now is providing such opportunity for us. Most of the time when you're winning and you're winning and you're winning, you don't change your offense just because you think you might want to, right? If we continue the way that we are moving and with the tax code that we have, we will continue to win. Tom Latek, Kentucky Today.
Well, thank you, Governor, and good afternoon. I'm seeing more and more stories that Omicron may have seen its peak in the United States. Have you gotten any information from the Biden administration regarding that? And or have you heard something from Dr. Stack or state public health officials on that topic?
So we do not believe, and we're not getting information in, that Omicron has peaked in the United States yet. They think that it may have peaked certainly in Africa. There are some areas of the United States that we're hoping it's peaked and will decrease. What they are telling us is that they believe the peak will occur in January, that we haven't hit it yet in most places, but that in the coming weeks, and I don't think anybody has an exact time period, that they hope that it will peak. But that hope is also mixed with the concern about how fast it's increasing and what that means about where the peak is. Again, it's all theory. We really hope it's true. Generally, when you look at these things, like if we can go all the way back to Philadelphia versus St. Louis, the faster you go up, the faster you go down, but also the more lives you lose, even in that short period of time. Bria Jones.
No questions from me at this time, Governor. Thank you.
Bria Jones is our new Team Kentucky All-Star. John Charlton.
Thanks, Governor, for your time. How you doing? Happy 2022 to you. I know earlier this week you talked about the car tax and all the, as you called them, lies swirling on social media. So this week, a couple bills or a few bills have been filed about car tax relief. One would involve freezing the value of the car from last year and making it the value this year. Another one would be lowering the standard from clean trade-in to average trade-in. Would you support anything like that or any kind of tax relief on the car tax?
Well, I'm willing to look at either of those bills if they come to us. There was a what appeared to be a concerted effort to say somehow the Beshear administration can just raise the taxes on your car, which isn't accurate. The legislature sets the tax rate. And what's happening is people's cars are worth more than ever before. With where the market is, with not a lot of new cars coming out because of chip shortages or not enough, there's been a larger market for used cars, which just like when your house appreciates, your car appreciates, and thus that percentage times a higher value means you get a higher tax bill. Providing relief there could be something that could be really helpful for Kentuckians, and I'd want to look at the bill itself. I want to make sure that we're ultimately being fair to Kentucky families, and we look at whether that relief is helping the people that need it the most, but would be happy to look at and review either of them. Now, I never commit to signing something theoretical because it hasn't worked its way through the process, and oftentimes things look very different by the time they get out of the process. All right, tonight, 7 p.m., we'll be doing our update. We'll see you then. Not our update. I'm doing the budget address.